Okay, everyone. So this is the second episode of the podcast, and we screwed up the original recording. So Dave is kind enough to do this again, and we're still sponsored by water, uh, the world's most popular non-alcoholic drink. So it's free for our listeners. And Dave, we wanted to talk today about an incredible story you had about your fight with cancer. And spoiler alert, you're winning. But let's start in the beginning where you first noticed a problem and how long ago that was.
So, okay, you want to start at the beginning, or should we start at the end and then go back to the beginning?
Let's start in the beginning when you first noticed a problem and
Okay.
what you did or didn't do about it.
Yeah, well, I did nothing about it. So it had to have been 4 to maybe 6 years ago at this point where I noticed something like it was really small. Like and I noticed it particularly, I think, when I was doing an exercise called seated calf raises. There was like a little rubbery ballish thing in my butt. So I don't know. I knew it was something, and I hate going to the doctor, so I would put that off as long as possible. So to me, I don't know. I had no knowledge on anything related to cancer really, but to me, I would think of a lump as something that should be pretty solid or hard. So I wasn't even really thinking that it was a tumor, but I guess I assumed that I pulled a muscle or something in my butt. I mean, I just didn't know, and it was something that didn't go away, and I just ignored it. Again, this was I can't even give a time frame for it. It was so long ago when I first noticed something was going on, but it was well before the pandemic. It was it was probably 2015, I would think. But that happened, and I knew it was there, and just ignored it because I felt fine. In fact, I never felt better in my life. I was in the best shape I'd ever been in, continuing to get in better shape, working out, doing jujitsu. Felt great, felt energized. So, I mean, there's slow moving cancers too and everything, but just didn't really cross my mind that much. I may have thought about it fleetingly, but really dismissed it. And again, I don't know if I have a phobia of going to the doctor, but it was not something I really wanted to do. And I should also mention that my sister, she's a surgeon at Mount Sinai, so I easily could have brought it up with her, but I didn't. I didn't. I just wanted to ignore it, which is one of the lessons here is not to ignore things. I should be a cautionary tale for people. But so I ignored this really for years, and I guess what started to worry me is that it went from really small and it grew like this. So I knew it wasn't like a muscle pull or anything. This thing just started growing to the point where it's like actually distorting the anatomy. Um, but by the time I started really getting kind of concerned about the level of growth, it was already in the pandemic when I started to get a little concerned about it and thinking, oh, maybe you should go check this out. So I knew that wasn't going to happen. So I just told myself that as soon as whatever the pandemic passes, or what eventually happened was we had the vaccine. I got vaccinated, and as soon as I was fully vaccinated, I went and made an appointment with my primary care doctor. Should also point out, and this may be a little humorous, that of course, I eventually went to Google, which I don't know, a mistake, maybe not, but I misdiagnosed this thing. Uh, during the pandemic, I misdiagnosed it as a something called a rectal prolapse. And when I eventually did tell my sister about this whole thing, she said, I'm not a good candidate for a rectal prolapse because I'm not a 90-year-old woman. So I
Or a
think
porn star, right?
I may be. I don't know. I actually didn't know what the causes necessarily were. It just sounded pretty similar to what was going on, and I
Now, for
thought
clarity, when you said you ignored it for a few years, I mean, are we talking 5 years or 10 years or
not 10. I don't 10 years. No. It could have been 5. I would say I ignored it for 3 to 5 years. It's
okay?
so hard for me to even give the exact time frame. It was so long, you know. But yeah, it was by the time I went to see my primary care guy, which was in what, June 2021 now, right? June 2021, I would say I probably had it from 2016, if not earlier. And that's when I first, noticed it. So who knows? I may have had it for 10 years because who knows when it first became noticeable to me. But so I saw my primary care doctor in June of last year, and he examines me, and I told him, I said, "Oh, I think I have a rectal prolapse." So he examines me, and he just looks at me. He says, "It's not a prolapse." I said, okay, it's a mass. Got to check it out. I could have checked out as soon as possible. It's a mass. So I said, okay, that's not what I wanted to hear, but okay, And
So there was something inside that had grown so much that now it was sticking out, and you thought it was a prolapse, but the doctor said, like, no, that is not your
yeah,
insides coming out. That is something growing.
he said it's a tumor, it's a
Mm.
mass, and you got to get it checked out. And he uh, he referred me to a doctor over here. Again, I'm only going to reveal the name of the surgeon that ultimately performed the surgery. I don't want to cast shade on anyone. But I had a doctor over here, rectal colon guy, who in DC, and so I went for an examination there, and this was the worst examination of my life. This is horrifying. First, he had his finger on my butt, and then came an instrument, and I mean, this was awful. So so the end result of this is he and I guess it was a medical student who was also following him. What he tells me is, well, we see colon cancer all the time. It does not look like colon cancer. I can't say it's not. He's like, it doesn't look like it. So he was going to do a biopsy, and the whole thing was he was very hard to get in touch with after that. And that was my my attitude was, well, he must not think it's that big a deal. So all right, so I wasn't really chasing him down. I'm like, okay, I'd call and his office wouldn't get back in touch with me. But my sister was infuriated, and then she decided that this doctor, this surgeon, was never going to perform surgery on my ass. She was not going to let him touch me. So she found me another surgeon here in DC. Guy was a great guy, and I'm not going to mention his name either because ultimately he didn't perform the major surgery. But he was great, and he did a biopsy and colonoscopy. But I should actually give the background to that too, because God, all right. So I'm in my apartment building where I've lived in DC since I was married, and I'm now divorced. I've been here for this was 2020. I've been here for 16 years. And so this is the night before this colonoscopy and biopsy. And so for colonoscopy, and I'm not going to get into too much detail, but you do this bowel prep that's awful. You've got to empty your bowels completely, right? So it's this super laxative you take. And I, did my thing, and I went to go to sleep. So it's like pushing midnight or so. And I fall asleep, and I'm not even certain like this is reality. But all of a sudden, fire alarm goes off. The fire alarm in my building after midnight. So I've been here 16 years. I can count on my hand and have fingers left over the number of times we've had a fire alarm after midnight in the building. It's like maybe the third time. It's once every 4 years. So at this point, I have to make this call about what to do because, again, without going into too much detail, you don't have a lot of wiggle room with this prep. Like you have to keep going to the bathroom. And the problem is, like once you have to go, you don't really have time to get anywhere. It's an instantaneous thing for anyone who's ever gone through the prep itself. So you know what I'm talking about. But like you don't have time and you're gonna have to go to the bathroom. So this fire alarm's going off. And I probably should have just chosen to fry in my building, but for some reason, and I'm not thinking straight, I get all my stuff together and I walk out of the building with the rest of the all my neighbors, and we're all out there. And I'm just, I'm worried that I'm gonna shit my pants in front of my entire apartment building, like which was and really not only a possibility, but a probability with this. Like the longer we're out there. So we're out there for 10, 15, 20 minutes. And we're out there 20 minutes. And right at that 20-minute point, I was going to go up to the fire department and just let them know that I was having surgery in the morning situation just to see if I can get back in. I don't know. It ended up, I don't know how it didn't happen, but it didn't happen. I was out there for 20 minutes. Uh, I have no idea. I feel like it was miraculous that I did not. I don't know what I would have done had that happened because I'd probably have to move out of my apartment. That would be so humiliating. But this is what happened the night before. So a fire alarm goes off at like 12:30. Ended up being some neighbor, uh, overcooked food. This is what it always ends up being. Thankfully, like no real problem. But that's what happened the night before. So to get back on track, the next day I go for this biopsy and colonoscopy with uh, with the second surgeon that I met. Great guy. So we get the results of that, and okay, on the continuum, it wasn't the worst thing, but it wasn't the best. The best result would have been had this thing been a completely innocuous, benign thing. That would have been great, but it wasn't. It also wasn't colon cancer. He tells me I have a gastrointestinal stromal tumor. It's known as a gist. I had never heard of this type of cancer before. I had, been lucky enough to be one of the few people. It's an extremely rare form of cancer, but I guess on the list of cancers, maybe among the better. I don't even know if that's true or not. But in any case, this thing had grown to the extent that it was. He told me it was considered aggressive because of how big it had gotten, and it was too large to remove safely without just removing the sphincter and leaving me with a colostomy bag. So that was really not what I viewed as an option. So we went about trying to shrink this thing through a chemo treatment, a drug called imatinib. So we were going to try to shrink it to the point where surgery could be performed safely and it could be removed without damaging the sphincter to the extent where I would have to have a bed. So this was it was a 6 to 9 month course of treatment. Eventually, this drug stops working, and the really important thing is eventually, after it stops shrinking the tumor will outsmart it eventually, and excuse me, and start growing again, which becomes a bigger concern once you go through the actual treatment. So, and there's no guarantee it would shrink, but it did, and it shrunk substantially over that first 6 months. Then it stopped. But it shrunk like a third. And after about 9 months, my oncologist, not the surgeon, I had an oncologist who the oncologist, he was the one that was treating me, and he would be the one who would recommend surgery, and then I'd have a surgeon who would have to perform it. So at that point, he says, I recommend surgery. And, he just wants the tumor to be removed. So I speak with the surgeon, and he says, okay. And he's got a radiologist, and I think a lot of his opinion is based on what the radiologist is telling him. But he gives me the option. He says, first, it shrunk, but it hasn't shrunk enough. We remove it totally, you'd be left with a bag. So, yeah, I wasn't willing to do that. That wasn't an alternative I was willing to accept at my age, and considering my entire identity basically is built. It's all in jujitsu and working out. So,
You work
words.
out every day and do jujitsu pretty
I
much
work
every
out four,
day.
four mornings a week. I do
Yeah.
jujitsu 5 or 6 days a week. So I mean,
And
it's my entire existence.
yeah, I mean, if you had a colostomy bag, there would be no
There'd
contact
be none
sport
of
that
that.
you could,
Yeah, it would be
I
none of
mean,
that.
yeah,
Yeah,
you might be able to go for a walk or bike, but you would
yeah,
not be able to
exactly. It would
jujitsu,
change.
wrestling, anything like that.
It would change anyone's life.
Yeah.
So, and I know people have them, and I hate to, but I'm giving you my story and exactly what I said to the doctor. I said, make this easier on both of us. I said, shoot me now. So let's make it easier. Like, I'm not going to do that. So the other option he was looking at was removing most of it, which and leaving the sphincter intact, and then we'd monitor it. And my oncologist was not in favor of that at all. You don't want to leave behind cancer, but that was the other alternative he was looking at. But then he presented that to a tumor board, of other surgeons, and they did not think that was a great idea. They thought it could make it worse than it had been. So ultimately, what I was leaning towards, and this was not great either, was to continue the imatinib and monitoring it and hoping it didn't, start outsmarting it and growing again. Because what I could say is, and I was very, very fortunate considering this thing was really like right on the sphincter. So it was just a delicate situation. I never, I never had any, never had any side effects from it. My sister was shocked too. So my feeling was if I could continue feeling fine, working out, doing jujitsu, feeling completely healthy, and having this thing there, it's all right by me, Like, I was like, maybe give me another 10 years, 15 years, whatever. But I wasn't about to instead have a surgery that would leave me with a bag. So my sister, again, she's a surgeon at Mount Sinai, and she wanted me to get a second opinion. She actually knew someone she hadn't even thought of really, but then she realized, she's like, oh, Patricia Silla. That's the one surgeon I'm going to bring up, her name. Dr. Patricia Silla, Sylla. I owe my life to her. But yeah, so I will say right now, anyone, if you or anyone ever has any issue, any rectal issue, Dr. Patricia Silla is the one to go to in Mount Sinai, wherever you are. Speak with her. It's unbelievable. But I go out to see her late August, I think. Yeah, it must have been late August, like right after my birthday. And I was like, I couldn't believe that there would be, you know, too big a difference between what she would tell me and what I was hearing here. But I meet with her, and she was great, and she was hilarious because the first time I see her, she's like, "Oh, I've been waiting to see you. I can't wait to see your butt." And then and my sister and I had already spoken with her because I was already traumatized by that first examination. So I did not want to go through another one of those examinations. So she had to cajole me into allowing her to put her finger on my butt. And she did this by telling me that her fingers were smaller than this other guy's and it would be that bad. And and that
You
she
know,
had
not to make light of this, but that should be an occupational qualification. Like tall people play basketball, short people are jockeys.
oh, small fingers,
Before,
you could
yeah,
become a
before they let you into
proctologist.
that specialty, they should like you have to hold up your
I
hand
gotta
and say
tell
like,
you, I
yeah,
gotta tell you, it was way, it was definitely less torturous. And but she said she had to do it to, to figure out whether she could perform the surgery. So I went with it, and then when she spoke with me and my sister there, she said that she could not understand why they were so insistent that I would be left with a bag. She thought she could get this entire tumor and leave the sphincter intact. And she wanted to do it as soon as possible. Again, with the, uh, you know, no, we had no idea when or if, well, I shouldn't say it, but when the tumor would start growing again. So it wasn't like, oh, let's do this surgery in 2 months from now. It was like she actually wanted to do it in a few days, but ultimately we scheduled it for September 13th. It was actually, I probably went to see her early September because it was like a week later, whatever it was. I went there September 13th. She performed the surgery, and I mean, I got out of surgery. One thing I'll also say is, and I don't think this is a difference in the surgeons, I think it's a difference in the surgery. The biopsy just took a piece of it, and I think that was a lot worse as far as recovery than Dr. Silla having removed all of it. It took me a long time to recover from the biopsy, not the colonoscopy, it was the biopsy. I felt like I had gotten hit by a truck. I mean, I don't think I worked out for like a month or maybe longer. Got back to jujitsu. This, first of all, there was a chance I'd have to stay overnight. I didn't. I was out. Um, Surgery was, she must have started at 9 o'clock. I was up again by 12:30. I was going home, not home, but because I was staying near my sister. I was staying at a residence in New Jersey, actually New York, really, at the border. But I was home a few hours later, and I felt pretty much fine. Um, like I could not believe the difference in how I felt because the next morning in the same parking lot as this hotel I was staying at, there was, and this was very convenient. There was a grocery store. I went grocery shopping for myself, like, and this was, the next morning, literally. And I mean, I was on some oxys, but I'll also say this straight out: like I was taking the oxy not to really control the pain, but because I was like, hey, you prescribed me oxy. I went through this. I'll take it. And plus, I was kind of bored. I wasn't allowed. I wasn't allowed to sit. I was just laying down. You're not supposed to sit. You weren't supposed to sit at all, let alone not. Like if you're gonna sit, maximum length 30 minutes. So I was following because I didn't want to have any issues at all. So yeah, the recovery, I felt better within days. I even I had to schedule a follow up with her, and I scheduled it too early because I was feeling better, and I had to wait. So I had the surgery. I think it was a Tuesday. Was it Tuesday the 13th? Trying to think. I don't know. I saw her maybe a week and a half later, and everything was okay. And then we got the pathology report back, which confirmed that she had removed the entire tumor, all of it gone. And I mean, I and she, it was very clean too. Like they weren't pieces; she just took the whole thing. I mean, she cleared. I was ready to go work out and do jujitsu like a week later, but she cleared me to work out. I think it was 2 weeks after the surgery, and then jujitsu was either 3 or 4. I mean, I was back at both. I was working out again. I mean, I missed so little time working out. I hadn't even lost anything. It's like right back. I hadn't lost a step. Jujitsu, I lost a little cardio, but I was right back to that too. Uh, again, I think I owe my life to my sister and Dr. Silla. Recovery since then, it's been great. I do have to continue to take this chemo medication for 2 more years. All I can say about that is like I've tolerated it very well. I do all my stuff. A little bit nauseous, but like hardly anything. It's hardly even noticeable. So to me, I mean, if you know, that's the worst result that I had from this, that I'm continuing to take this medicine for 2 more years. I mean, I can't believe it. I'm so fortunate. And and also, I mean, the whole thing really made me sad too, because just recognizing the saying there but for fortune,
Mhm.
knowing my sister and with those resources and being able to see Dr. Silla and getting a second opinion that diverged so much. I mean, the consequences to your quality of life being told, hey, we performed the surgery here, you're going to have a colostomy bag, versus I can do this and you're going to be fine. I mean, the outcomes, and that's just wholly dependent on who I knew, the resources I had there. It just makes you think.
Well, yeah, and I guess if somebody, didn't have health insurance and avoided
Uh,
going to the doctor for that reason, and, if they had gotten this
don't get me
diagnosis,
started on that now.
well, and if they had this diagnosis and they said you didn't get a colostomy bag and, that was their only option, you were able to go to New York and, see this woman. So yeah, I mean, I think you were very fortunate in that respect, but uh,
Unbelievable.
other than you not wanting this bag, I mean, is there anything that convinced you to get a second opinion? Because a lot of people, when they hear something from a doctor, it's like they revere them and they don't want to challenge them. And it's like, well, the doctor said this, so it must be right because I don't know anything about medicine.
Well, I mean, the bag was, as I said, I was not going to do that. And no one was trying to convince me to do that, really. Even my oncologist didn't try to convince me. I mean, everyone understood my saying I wasn't going to do that. The second opinion, I think, with my sister, that was really her insistence, because to me, I was like, what are they going to tell me? I couldn't imagine that it would be anything different or that different from what I was hearing. Like, that didn't make sense to me logically. That you know, one surgeon would tell me, "Hey, you're going to be left with a bag," and the other surgeon would tell me no. It just, I mean, obviously it happened, and then you start thinking about it, and it does make sense too, because, I mean, regardless of what you're talking about, you always have expertise. You can have a good surgeon versus a great surgeon versus a world-class surgeon, and you're going to have different results based on that. And you have studies that will show you that, like patient mortality or just problems
Mhm.
alone. So of course you're going to, but I mean, just hearing in advance, you know, one person giving you this, I mean, to me, the bleakest of outlooks
Mhm.
for like a life, right? Like, hey, sorry, I know you do all this stuff. We're gonna have to take it away from you, but you'll keep living. Yeah, like, is that living to me? I don't know. Versus, again, like, you're gonna be fine, you know. And I'm not going to if I go and I'm performing this surgery and I don't think I could do this, I'm not gonna do it. That was also, it was she wasn't going to try to do something. She wasn't going to leave me messed up. There are always risks with surgery. So like I knew that going into it. I knew anything could happen, but like the risk was worth it here too. Because again, like the other alternative, what I was looking at was, maintaining treatment that was, I mean, almost guaranteed to eventually reverse itself. And then actually what would have been the next thing to do there would have been to probably double the dose of the imatinib, which, yeah, I'm tolerating it extremely well at the dose I'm taking. Doubling it doesn't mean I tolerate it just as well. Not only that, if that didn't work, they'd probably have to switch to a harder drug, which again, who knows how I tolerate it. So I was looking at the future and it seemed like all I was actually what I was thinking of at that time, really, with the diagnosis I got here, I said, you know what? I just want to monitor this and hopefully it won't start growing again for a while. If I can get 5 years, 10 years, whatever it is. I was, to me, I was like, I'd rather get 1 year, 2 good years than like whatever was being offered in the alternative. I was like, I'd rather be able to do my thing for another year or two if that's all it is, than than the quality of life that was going to result from the surgery here in DC.
Yeah, and I mean, if anyone is on the fence about something and should I get this checked out by a doctor or not, I mean, if you had done this in year 1 or 2 instead of year 5 or
Oh, I think it would
six,
have been simple.
this
I didn't
wouldn't have.
even ask because
Yeah,
I feel embarrassed or, I think the answer is obvious, but it was so small when I first noticed it. I'm convinced it would have been nothing. It would have been very easy to take care of if had I checked it out when I should have. And I mean, it's a lesson to me, and I hope I can be a cautionary tale. And thankfully, like, not a cautionary tale, like, oh, Dave's dead, like I'm good, but like, still around. But this was not a fun year. Like, and again, like a lot of this is pretty nightmarish, just having it there, and then actually seeing it. And did I send you the picture of it?
no, you didn't.
You don't want to see it now? Like there's some people wanted to see it.
I'll
Some
pass.
people wanted to see this thing. I thought it was gross. And I had some people who really want, and I sent it to them if they wanted to see it. Like, no big deal to me. I was like, I didn't
You know what?
post
If
it.
anyone wants to see it, put your email in the comment
Yeah,
section
send me if
and
you
we'll
really
share.
want to see this thing. I could, but there were people who didn't want to see it, and there were people who really wanted to see it. And a lot of them actually like were nurses and or they and I was like, this is gross, but if you want to see it, see. I
No,
cannot
no,
believe
no. I'm
I
pretty squeamish about blood. This is why
oh
I went to
God.
law school instead of
Peter,
med
I couldn't believe
school.
this thing was grown inside of you. I was like, what
Yeah.
the hell? I was like, I'm glad they took this out. Oh my God.
Yeah, normally if you're smart enough to do math, you go to med school and become a doctor, but I'm pretty squeamish about this. So I went to law school and, in the land of the blind, the one-eyed man is king. So out of the few lawyers that can do math, you move into stuff that deals with numbers and, there's no one else there who can do your job. So,
Lawyers
uh,
are famously not good at math. This is true.
yeah. But we only have a couple of minutes left, and let me just say, I really appreciate you sharing the story with everyone so they can benefit from that. And we still don't have a name for the podcast, so if you think of a good name, put it in the comments. And
Two lawyers, one podcast. Isn't that what we were going with? I thought that
you know
was.
what, that was my suggestion, and you shot that down for
I
some
didn't shoot it
reason.
down. I said I was open to whatever.
I think two
I did
lawyers,
not
one
shoot it
podcast
down.
sounds great. I don't think we'll ever get a guest with that name. Uh, but I had no problem with it. But people can leave their comment with a suggestion.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Oh,
And also like we still have no idea what
maybe
direction
we can
to.
get it. Maybe we can get a suggestion from the guy who's been swindled into thinking lawyers are smart his entire life.
Right. Yeah, that was a comment on our
Now,
first episode.
we're
We
making fans already. It's
yes, it was on Bob Dylan, and we got 50 comments, and like a couple of people are such Bob Dylan fans that just even alluding to the fact that something that like yeah he insulted us personally. But you are a huge Bob Dylan fan. I'm not making this up. Do you want to show them your
oh,
actual
of course.
collection?
I don't think anyone listening to that thought anything but me being a Bob Dylan fan, considering the way I talk. But come on, we have all this. Ooh.
That's all Bob stuff, right?
These are all actually bootlegs. Yeah, these are legitimate bootlegs that I bought years and years ago. Here are more bootlegs. See that? Oh, then what? What do we go here? Oh, wait. There's the I'm Not There
Wow.
from the movie. Yeah, I got that out here. I'm sorry. I'm just trying to. Can you see it, Peter?
Yeah, I can see it.
Yeah, that's the. movie still from out in
Legit, Dylan Bonafide, you are a super fan.
I
Yeah.
love Bob Dylan's music, but I know what his flaws as a human being. And I mean, I think there are things that are open to debate, but look, there is a value to hand signed autographs, and especially when you're saying that's what you're receiving and you're selling a book for $600 versus something that's worthless, which is an auto pen signature. So I don't really think, I don't know if there were good faith arguments from the people who were trying to, I think there was one person in the comments who said, oh, the buyers are being too nitpicky, but I feel like that was probably trolling from someone. Good trolls can make it seem like they're sincere, because I just can't, like, unless you don't really understand the difference in value between the two, and that's what you're paying for here. It's not a matter of, of course you can use an auto pen to legally sign documents, or presidents have used them. I guess Obama was the first, but that's the issue is the value that they have in a market. There's a specific market for this stuff, and Dylan, I mean, everything we've seen from how he did this, it betrayed a guilty conscience. He didn't tell anyone he was doing this, and apparently he used different forms of signature for the auto pen to try to make it seem like it was not an auto pen. Like, why would you do that? I think there were 7 forms of signature apparently. So I don't think there's a lot of room to pivot here. I think Bob Dylan, you can try to say it's not that serious a thing, and maybe it's, in the scheme of things, it isn't, but I mean, people are being scammed out of a lot of money. Those art prints, I mean, there's a value to this stuff, and he was scamming people. You were being swindled by Bob Dylan. So, like, or I mean, as a fan of his music, am I not allowed to say that? Of course
you're absolutely entitled to. So let's end on this. And like I said, we still don't have a direction. So if you'd like to see more stuff like this, or Bob Dylan stuff, whatever, we still don't have a direction for this. So if you have suggestions,
Go Direction Home.
For future episodes,
No Direction Home could be the name of the podcast.
Just put it, put the suggestions in the comments. 2 lawyers, 1 podcast. That was a suggestion I had. If you got a better one, let us know. All right.
Thanks for listening.
All right. Like and subscribe.